Welcome to the Blossom Mindset, the path to blossoming into your fullest potential through everyday actions. I am your host, Lindsay, a behavior analyst, certified clinical trauma specialist, author, and entrepreneur. My passion is helping people create meaningful, positive change. Using a behavior analytic approach, I guide individuals to uncover their values, build self-awareness, and take intentional steps towards their goals and building their skill set. This podcast reminds you that you don't have to face life's challenges alone and is here to help you take the first steps towards meaningful change by increasing self-awareness and shifting your mindset with support and no judgment. Together, we'll explore topics like identifying your values, setting realistic goals, and learning practical tools to increase mindfulness and shift your mindset towards a more meaningful life. With guest speakers and actionable strategies, each episode helps you break through internal and external barriers, offering easy steps to create a life aligned with what matters most. This is the Blossom Mindset Podcast, your path to blossoming into your fullest potential, one action at a time. Let's get started. This is a friendly reminder that the information shared on the Blossom Mindset is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach and is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Remember, this is not a therapy session and is simply for educational purposes and serves as an additional resource for you. Your well-being is important to us, and reaching out for the right support is a vital step in your journey. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Blossom Mindset. I'm Lindsay, and today we're talking about staying the course. In the last episode, we focused on turning vision into action and taking those first meaningful steps forward. And while starting is important, what often feels harder is figuring out how to keep going without burning out or feeling like you're constantly falling behind. I know that getting into the new year, it's already a couple weeks into the new year, and that can be when some people can start to lose track of their goals or New Year's resolutions because that consistency starts to fall off. You may have gone really strong in at first, and now you don't have the structures in place to maintain it. So today we're going to talk about how to build consistency that feels supportive, flexible, and aligned, and not rigid or overwhelming. You can create this whole plan and have this plan in place, but if it's too rigid, it can feel overwhelming, and then you fall off of that habit, and that consistency just isn't there. So, what is consistency? Consistency isn't about doing something perfectly every day. It's about showing up in ways that align with your values again and again and again, even when that motivation shifts or there's an obstacle in the environment that comes up, because we can plan and plan all we want, and we can never account for certain things that might come up and shift our routine. So, consistency is about coming back and being able to execute those skills over and over again, even when we fall off of that. Think of consistency as tending to something over time. Some days you can show up fully, and other days you might do the bare minimum. Both still count. What matters is that you don't abandon yourself when things are feeling hard. Again, there's going to be days where you might just be doing the bare minimum, whether it's something in the environment comes up, whether it's an emergency that happens, and maybe you're feeling sick and your body just feels overwhelmed. Some days you can execute the skills, and other days you won't be able to execute as much. And this is where we are going to break down the consistency with the barriers that can happen. One of them is perfectionism. Perfectionism may say, if I can't do it right, then why try? So, in those moments, if you are having those perfectionism mindsets of, if I can't do it, why try? You may avoid certain tasks or certain actions, and that's going to stop some of that consistency as well. You may be feeling fatigued or overwhelmed from pushing too hard. So, as I mentioned before, there's going to be days where your body might just be saying no and isn't able to push through. And then we also have avoidance, which shows up as that procrastination or distraction. We may be avoiding those skills, executing towards those goals, and getting distracted with other things. And as I also mentioned before, too, those obstacles that come up with life changes and that can disrupt routines. And you can plan and plan all you want, but you can't account for certain life changes that may happen. And when these barriers arise, I want you to recognize that these aren't personal failures. They're signals that are asking for adjustment and not quitting. And that's where that consistency comes in. It's you getting back on track when these barriers may arise. And that's how we build those habits too, because building habits takes consistency. And it's important to have those supportive strategies in place as well in order to build sustainable consistency or sustainable habits. Without that support, kind of going back to the stem when we talk about the blossom mindset, the support system, it may not be a person, it may be these small repetitive actions and other supportive strategies to help you and support you while you're trying to stay consistent, especially when these barriers start to arise. So, some supportive strategies can include choosing small, repeatable actions over the bigger expectations. The more you can repeat small actions, the quicker they become habit. Creating anchor habits tied into things that you already do can be helpful as well. Maybe one of your habits is wanting to drink more water. So, paired with breakfast, something that you're already doing, drinking a glass of water, or before you have your morning coffee, drink a glass of water. If you can pair those habits, you're likely to subconsciously then build those into your routines naturally, which is then increasing the consistency that that action is occurring. We can also support our consistency by tracking the progress gently. And we want to do this without judgment. Sometimes when we start tracking things, whether it be kind of going back to that health and fitness mindset, because that's something that is important to me and I can tie things into. So, thinking about tracking food or calories, that's something I've started with in the past, but it's not something that I have found support for myself because that can increase judgment, that could increase almost like over tracking, or for me, it was difficult trying to track that progress or tracking the calories through that, or through tracking methods in that way because I was almost taking too much time and feeling that I wasn't doing it right or that I'm over or under and it was causing too much pressure. So for me, I was gently starting to track the progress there with my food intake and the nutrients that were coming based on more mindful eating habits. But even with tracking progress, we want to find methods that would work. One thing I used in the past was an app that was called Habit, and you could add in your own habits and track those daily. And I think also having the flexibility and tracking gently means it's okay if you missed a day. So, one of the habits that I've been tracking to increase consistency this year is movement. I've noticed over the past few months that my movement has decreased, whether that just be steps or going to the gym. Part of my barriers have been consistent injuries, and then things keep coming up in life that I get into a habit of doing it, and there's a barrier that comes up. So it's getting back into those habits. And that's where that consistency comes in instead of falling off completely. So I've been tracking my steps just through my Apple Watch, and it's been very helpful to see where I'm at, tracking the trends. And then also, again, going back to being gentle and planning for flexibility. There are days where maybe my watch didn't charge all the way, so it didn't show the amount of steps that I probably had, and that's okay. I know where my movement was, or I felt approximately where my movement was. And I was consistent, or I know I was consistent. I didn't just give up because my watch wasn't working. So, trying to not be so hard on yourself on the days where there are other barriers that come into play, because the harder we get, sometimes that increases that avoidance, kind of going back to that perfectionism of, well, if I didn't meet my goals and I missed a few days, then why keep trying? Well, it was a goal because you valued it as a goal to choose. So let's work on getting back on track and getting back into consistency with it. And your consistency grows when your plan also supports your nervous system and not when it overwhelms it. So, to maintain that consistency and establish these habits, we have to be able to put those plans in place to support our nervous system with it. If our nervous system is so dysregulated because it feels so overwhelmed with all of the expectations that we're putting on ourselves, we're not going to be consistent. We're going to keep failing. We're going to not meet those goals and potentially be hard on yourself as well. So, we want to have that plan in place, have that support to support our nervous system in order to build sustainable consistency. And consistency is shaped by how you respond when things don't go as planned. So, being able to practice some self compassion instead of self criticism can help when we're starting to have those thoughts of, but I failed. I didn't meet my goal. It's been a week and I haven't been in the gym. Practice that self compassion of, let me just get started back again. Or I was sick and I physically couldn't go. I physically couldn't meet that goal, instead of criticizing yourself for not meeting it, because then we fall further into that avoidance, which is what we want to try and avoid, actually, is avoid the avoidance and move forward towards those goals again with those small intentional steps. And that also takes getting curious about what works and what doesn't work. You may try something for a while and you're recognizing that the supports in place don't work, and that's okay. That's where you learn to shift and figure out what works. So, going back to the tracking of the food, it didn't work for me to track calories. That's just not a step that worked. So, I found other methods to help me track and be consistent with my food intake. And the nutrients is kind of where I was focused on, of having more of a well-balanced diet while also managing some of my own health concerns that get in the way, um, with a lot of food allergies. So trying to figure out how to manage that was very difficult, or is very difficult. And I have to learn different strategies of what is going to work while managing it and what's not. And what might work for me might not work for you. So I encourage you to really get curious about what supports and what systems you have in place for your habits, if those are working and if those are not, and what you might want to try. So, even going back to the steps, for me, I love my Apple Watch. Very simple, easy to work with, and that's what works for me to increase my movement and track my movement. Other people, maybe you like a visual calendar, or maybe you prefer not having it at all because it may stress you out seeing it. Um, and then we also want to celebrate the small wins, even if it wasn't the goal you set for the day. Did you get up and did you try? Celebrate that win. Um, Getting up and getting started is hard, or it can be hard for some people. And we want to modify our goals as well based on where we're at. If you set a goal for 10,000 steps a day for the month of January and you're not meeting it, that's okay. Maybe go back and modify the goal. Is your baseline closer to 6,000 steps a day? If it's closer to 6,000 steps a day, then 10,000 may be unattainable, especially if we're looking at potential barriers that may come up. So maybe you want to set it at 6,500 steps and slowly increase that so you're getting those dopamine hits, so you're getting that reinforcement for reaching those goals and building over time, because that also helps build that momentum. And notice when you're starting to avoid and choosing one intentional step anyway. So, are you engaging in avoidance because you don't want to do it, because you feel overwhelmed, or is it something that's just not valuable to you anymore? Now, there's also going to be habits that we're going to have to build in consistency with within our lives that we may not want to do, maybe like chores or completing different work tasks that we may not want to do, but we need to be consistent with. And noticing that avoidance and choosing those intentional steps towards completing it. And that's where you're going to want to focus more on these supports in place that you can establish with those tasks specifically. That is really that mindset. If we can work on shaping that mindset behind consistency, behind building those habits, you can move forward towards creating better habits within your life, especially when things aren't going as planned, when these barriers arise, because they are going to arise. There's not always control of that. So I want you to reflect for a moment and ask yourself, where in my life do I want to show up more consistently? Is that in the workplace? Is it self-compassion toward yourself? Is it within social relationships? And then what's one small, doable action that you can do this week? Pick one goal, one resolution that you've had that maybe you've been avoiding, and break it down. Write it down, keep it simple, make it small and attainable, and allow for flexibility. If we are so rigid, that's where some of those perfectionism statements can come in. I can't do this. This is too much. It didn't go as planned. I didn't meet it exactly to where I said. I'm failing. You're not. Allow for some flexibility. Life is chaotic, life is challenging, or it can be. You could have every system set in place, and there can still be obstacles that come up. So, again, this week, I encourage you to write down some small, consistent habits that you can make. Keep it simple and allow for that flexibility. And start with one action that you can build in to start to create those habits and being consistent with, and build it into routines that you already have in place if possible to help increase that momentum. So remember, consistency isn't about doing more. It's about staying connected to what matters. In the next episode, we're going to talk about what happens when life doesn't follow the plan that you have in place and how to navigate the unexpected with flexibility and grounding. Because I don't know about you, but this year has already been off to a chaotic start, and life, again, isn't going to always go as planned. So it's going to be important to learn how to navigate the unexpected, be flexible, and learn how to ground yourself. So until next time, keep blossoming. Thank you for joining in on this episode of The Blossom Mindset with me. I hope that our discussion has inspired you to take actionable steps towards blossoming into your fullest potential. Don't forget, the best way to show your support is by liking, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review on this podcast. Feel free to drop any ideas for future podcast topics by commenting on my most recent Instagram post of this episode. If you are interested in additional resources or one-to-one coaching, check out our website linked in the show notes. I am so proud of you. By tuning in and listening, you just took one small, actionable step forward towards blossoming into your fullest potential.